right, well, good morning.
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 Good to see everybody today. We could all make it. We're continuing in our discussion about Cain and the flood, and different questions that have been brought up about things. So I had an interesting one this week that I'm researching. Well, I'm going to start with that. I want to kind of get your guys' take on that. Okay. We talked about one of the last week or the week before or something about when Lucifer fell, and that he was cast down to earth, but yet he had access to heaven, and we discussed it. I still think that Satan has access to heaven. He can go before God because he's always accusing us. The Bible tells us he's the accuser of the brethren, and so he's always accusing us to God, like he did Job, as we see Job. And so, but the question that was brought up was, when did that happen? We don't know the exact time, but it was in the creation story. It says that the earth was there, and okay, now there we go. All right, so talks about that the earth was there and it was formless. It wasn't shaped or whatever. And then when God started creating the creation story, 7 days of creation, he shaped it, added water, and whatever. It said that the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters, I believe, in Genesis 1 and stuff like that. So the earth existed before the creation days actually started. It just wasn't formed into what we know of it now. But, and I'm sure there's probably way smarter people than me who would argue with me about that. And that's fine, but even so. So I kind of lean towards the theory of that when Satan was cast out of heaven, Satan and the 30 of the angels were cast out of heaven, they were cast down to earth, to the formless thing that it was. Because it says the Spirit of God hovered over it. So the Spirit of God's hovering over the waters, and why couldn't the spirits of Satan, Lucifer, and the other angels be there as well, or whatever, and stuff, And so, but I don't have any real scriptural backing to back that up on. It's just my opinion on that. But we do know that Satan was in the garden, right?
Yeah.
Because he was there as the serpent, and he brought, tempted Eve to partake of the fruit. Okay. Now the question that was brought to me, which really caused a conundrum for me, do you believe that Satan became who he became because he took from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil before Eve did, when he was, huh?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. So yeah, that was sent to me this week on text by somebody that watches on YouTube, and I was like, I'm gonna have to get back with you on that because I need to kind of research that. So, but so that was a very, very good question. I was kind of taken back by that one. So, but so morning, and I will let you know, because this question might interest you as well. So, I said that I was asked this week talking about Cain and the fall of Lucifer and the angels and all that stuff, and it was sent to me and asked, did Lucifer fall because he partook of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
But if it was the tree, it was always on earth though, right?
We don't know. It might have been.
Okay, because if not, he was in heaven until he was cast out of heaven, right?
So he was already
evil, or whatever word you want to use, because he was cast out. I mean, that was the reason he was
Well,
cast out.
right, he was
I thought a war
prideful.
broke out in heaven.
That's, yeah, a war did break out in heaven, and they got cast down. They lost and they got cast down because he tried to overthrow God. But
So he would have
if
already
heaven is,
had his,
well, but if heaven is perfect and all the created beings in heaven are perfect, how did he become prideful and try to
I was
overthrow
going to
God?
say, something was wrong with him if he tried to overthrow God. And that happened before he got to the earth. So no, the tree didn't make him evil.
No,
But
it says
if the earth was formless too.
the earth was formless,
If it
yeah.
had been here, then
It wouldn't have been here because the earth was formless and void.
Right.
So there was
So-
nothing but a circle.
Yeah. Lucifer was in charge of worship, music and the worship of God in heaven. So that was his role in heaven as one of the high
He
archangels.
turned into a cult preacher. Because that's what they always are in charge of worship, and then they get prideful, and they want people to worship them. He's cult leader.
Okay. But we don't know. I mean, could there have been something similar to the tree? Because obviously the angels have free will that we have, because some chose to rebel. And so what would give them the free will? Would the tree of knowledge of good and evil, if some form of it was in heaven with God, and they decided to partake of it
So why would
because
the
the
tree
earth
with
was
evil be in heaven?
the knowledge of good and evil?
Oh.
Yeah, like I said, it created quite a conundrum. And I'm going to research that more and see what I can find. I didn't get a whole lot of time this week to look at it, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there and, see and it didn't disappoint. The looks that I got from everybody was, ooh. So, but like you said, Benita, it is a very, very good question. So
And
difficult, yeah. And I don't know that we're going to get the answer on it. I really don't. A lot of this stuff we have to take on faith. And so until we get to heaven, and are we really going to care when we get to heaven?
And just because I'm married to him, he don't give me a heads up on this stuff, y'all. I hear it when y'all do, because I'm like, what?
I think I told you I got a question, but I don't think I
did
told you
tell
what
me
it
You got
was.
an interesting question that you
Yeah.
had to research. And
Yeah, but I
said,
didn't tell you what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you asked me, and I just went silent on you.
Yeah, that's one of those selective hearing.
So yeah, but yeah,
I'll get it.
so we will be. I'll be researching more, talking about. Melissa's digging. She is.
No, I just thought about a verse and I was wanting to know the rest of it. So, Lucifer is it star of the morning or something?
Yeah, morning star. Yeah, he was the morning star, I think. But yeah, it talks about it in Ezekiel, and I haven't gone to Ezekiel yet to research too much. So, but the fall and I think it's Ezekiel where the fall and the battle in heaven and the fall is described there, and so yeah, I think it's somewhere in Ezekiel, and that's what I got to research. I got to look and see what kind of the general, see what the Bible says, and then see where the Spirit leads me, and also where other people much smarter than me that write these books kind of can kind of guide and stuff. But but yeah. So we will be working our way that way. But we have been talking about Cain and why we started out talking about why his sacrifice was rejected, and we got to the point that he didn't sacrifice to God with his whole heart. And that's something we all need to bear in mind when we're doing things and giving to God. Do we give with our whole heart, or do we give half-heartedly, or do we give just, because out of obligation and stuff like that. What is the motive behind our giving? And that's something we need to be very careful of, because that got Cain in trouble. That started Cain down the path. It wasn't the whole reason, but God said, after he offered a sacrifice, he said, sin is crouching at your door. If you don't master it, then it will master you. And you need to, and that's in 4, I believe. So it talks about it. Yeah. This,
And it's
yeah,
exact-
chapter 4, verse 6. Why are you so angry? The Lord said. The Lord asked Cain, why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at your door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master. Okay? So, and then he didn't, and he got his brother out into the field and killed him. And then tried to cover it up, hide it, lie about it. And then we see Cain's line after that. Cain, punishment from God was that the ground wouldn't produce good fruit for him and everything. And that was already after Adam's punishment, and all of mankind's punishment was that we will toil to work. Because before the fall, so every time I have a bad day at work, I blame Adam. Because all goes back to him, because God said after that work will be toilsome. So it's like, okay, so but yeah, so it was already hard for Cain, and then it became even harder because he said the ground will not yield to you its good fruits and good everything. So but all right, so then we talked. We kept going. We saw that he became a vagabond, and that his lineage, and his lineage of descendants, because he wasn't following God, and he was opposed to. He was totally away from God and everything. That his lineage people, based on his family leadership, were not that great of people. They were. There was probably some good ones we don't know too much about. We just got a list, but we do know that the last one that's listed is Lamech, and he murdered a man and then thought he was so much better because, if God's going to vengeance Cain's, if somebody kills Cain for killing Abel, then 4 times over or 7 times over, then mine should be 10 times that. And so he felt he was so much better than Cain, and and he was very prideful about the killing that he did. And so you've gone from a guy that killed his brother and tried to hide it to now a guy that killed somebody and was very wide open about it and bragged about it and said, yeah, you can't kill me because God's going to, crucify you, persecute you to the however many generations. Okay. So, and then we get to the point where we talk about in chapter 6, and that's where I want to pick up today, is chapter 6, the flood. So all the evils going on in the world, and we've talked a little bit about this. We've kind of talked about, and I don't know that we've totally resolved the discussion as to who the sons of God and the daughters of men are considered to be. Okay, we know that there is a couple different theories on that. There are probably several, but the main ones are. That one is the sons of God were the godly line of Seth, and that was the descendant that Adam and Eve had after Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel, and Cain was banished, in a vagabond or whatever, and that they were the sons of God were the godly line of Seth, and the daughters of men were the descendants of Cain. Okay, now that's one theory, and that they, and that they became couples and married and were together and procreated and created, different people. Now we do know by the example we have from Solomon in the Bible that 1,000 wives will lead you astray, because that's what they did to him. But we also know that God told the Israelites, when you go into the promised land, wipe everybody out. Do not leave anybody. Wipe them all out. And that was not done. They did not follow God completely. That's in the book of Joshua that happens. They made some deals with some of the people and allowed them to stay. They were tricked by some of the people and made vows and promises and stuff. And so, but bottom line is that they allowed some of them to survive. And hence, 2,000 years later, we have fighting going on in the Middle East over that piece of property still to this day. Really sad. Well, actually, no, more than 2,000 years, because that's 2,000 years since Christ was here. It's like 4,000 or 5,000 years later, they're still fighting over the land. And so, we know that they will fight until the return of Christ, till the final battle comes in, which a lot of people are saying is coming real soon because, the signs are happening, Euphrates is drying up, and all these different, so they're going to be able to march across the Euphrates here in the next 2 or 3 years. And okay, I don't know. So, okay, I am a big believer that the earth kind of goes in cycles with droughts and famines and flooding and massive, there's earthquakes and all kinds of stuff that goes on, that the earth goes through these cycles, these pains. And, unless somebody was recording 3,000 or 4,000 years ago what the weather conditions were, which I don't think that they were, unless they were really bad, a drought of years or whatever. I think that maybe the Euphrates has dried up before, but it's rained enough and kind of whatever. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't dig into I'm not one of those guys that goes and plays in the dirt and sees, what the dirt's going to teach me and all that stuff, and glad for them. So anyway, so we're here. So we're at this point where we're the sons of men, the sons of God and the daughters of men. So the one thought is it's the sons of Seth, the descendants of Seth, and the daughters of descendants of Cain. One other one is that it's that the fallen angels that are here on the earth have had relations with the women on the earth and have created superhumans, giants, and everything, Nephilim and stuff. And so, and that God doesn't want this. I do know, and I do want to mention this, that some of, let's say it's Jude. Okay, in the book of Jude, verse 6, there's just one chapter to that. And he says, "And I remind you of the angels who did not stay within the limits of authority God gave them, but left the place where they belonged. God kept them securely chained in prisons of darkness, waiting for the great day of judgment." Okay, he's talking about the judgments and the false teachers, and that's what Jude's talking about here. Okay, so there are angels, fallen angels now, that are not loose on the earth because they went way overboard, more than kind of how God allowed them to, do, because God controls all of it. God controls. Right now, Satan is controlled on this earth. We might not believe it, but he is. There will be a day when he's not, as we see in Revelation. Okay? But some of them went so far that God actually bound them and put them in a pit. And then it's believed in one of the judgments in Revelation is that they're loosed during the Great Tribulation. Those angels are. And they come out and they are attacking the people of the earth and all that and stuff and causing havoc in the Great Tribulation and stuff. And so, but they are bound. So what kind of sin could they have done that would have, and you know, and I got New Living Translation, so it's kind of a little different, but it does say that you know, it says that they did not stay within the limits of God's authority. So could it be that they were procreating with the women of the earth, and that's why God wiped them out, or God wiped out the humans, and the angels that weren't affected by the flood, the fallen angels that weren't affected by the flood, would have been bound and cast into this pit? We don't. That's a theory. Okay? We also, I came across the theory that talked about that the fallen angels were indwelling in the men of the earth and controlling them and possessing them, and they were procreating with the women on the earth as the men. But in any case, something was going on with the people of the earth at that time that they were not, God was not pleased with, and so he was sorry. He was grieved that he made man. He did not. Now, don't mistake that for regret, because we talked about that a few weeks ago too. God does not regret. He did not regret that he made man. If he had regretted he made man, he probably would have wiped Noah out too, and all of them. And just said, fine, forget it. I'm not doing this no more. But regret would show that you made a mistake. You feel sorry for making a mistake, and we know that God doesn't make mistakes. And so we have that. And so now that you guys have had a week or two, we've talked about it a little bit. What do you think? Where do you?
A lot to take in into
You silenced us this week, Bruce.
Was it the question at the start that silenced it? Silenced everybody?
I think it's like Pam said, it's so many different things rolling around now.
Right.
Processing time. Remember processing.
I like processing. Yeah. So, but yeah. So, but we do have, it says here in the commentary I'm looking at here, that that the giants, that they were overstepping the bounds. Here it applies to the sons of God, a lusty, powerful lot striving for fame and fertility. They were probably powerful rulers who were controlled, indwelt by fallen angels. This is where I get the fallen angels, indwelt by the fallen angels. And it may have been the fallen angels left their habitation and inhabited the bodies of human descendants and warriors and mighty ones on the earth. Okay? And then he references Ezekiel 29, verses 11 through 19, and Daniel 10:13, that talks about the great kings of the earth have princes ruling behind them, that their power is demonic. And so it does refer to, apparently in those passages, and I did not look those up, and I apologize, that we have that the power, there was great kings of power on the earth, and they had sons that had demonic power. And so, and that this is believed as to why God wiped them out. We also talked about many in mythology talks about, we see a lot of mythological gods and stuff like that they would procreate with human women and have offspring with the human women and stuff. And so that's kind of along the lines, the Greek and the Roman mythology and all of them and all that stuff. And that, so that they can carry on their line and have another god or whatever, even though if they're a god, then they should be around forever. It shouldn't be, why do they need, someone to carry on their line and stuff? And so, whereas the God we serve and the God we follow wants a relationship with us. He wanted to have a relationship with us. He created us to have fellowship with him. It wasn't to carry on a lineage or to carry on something else, because God is eternal. Always will be. And so we don't see that. And so, but so we see that God comes in and finds Noah and his family to be faithful with all of this demonic whatever activity going on the earth. And I believe that it is demonic in some, whether they indwelt in the men, as it says here, or whether the fallen angels were taking the form as men, because we see in Sodom and Gomorrah that those angels that came to get Lot and his family out took the form of humans, basically. But they were really incredibly beautiful, good-looking humans, so much that the men wanted to take them and sleep with them because the sin was rampant again. And so we see the sin rampant nowadays too. So much sin, that covers the earth, and we just choose all the time. So, but so it could have been that these fallen angels were taking the form and making themselves look attractive, beautiful to the women of the earth, and that they were having relations with them and, procreating these huge Nephilim, giants, powerful beings. And the Nephilim, I don't believe, are just giants. I think that they are extremely powerful, like it says, almost with demonic powers, that they are strong and more so than just like Goliath was.
This is probably a dumb question. Are Nephilim male or female, or can be either?
I guess can be either. I don't know. We don't. So, but we do, but we do. I created.
If they're fallen angels, they would be male, right? Weren't all the angels male?
But weren't the fallen angels the ones that were procreating with the women?
The fallen angels are, huh?
The fallen angels were the ones that were procreating with the female women.
Yes.
I mean, the earth.
Of the earth. Yes.
So, yeah, they would be children, so they wouldn't necessarily have to be male.
Okay.
I
Right.
mean, I'm asking.
I think you're right on that. That they might, because they are a procreation of a human woman,
Right.
coming from a human woman, that they could be male or female.
So I'm confused. The
Okay.
Nephilim were not fallen angels. It was the product of the
It was
fallen
product,
angels.
product of the fallen angels, yes.
I almost
That's-
wonder if this is where the Greek mythology came from. They're actually one and the same. So think about it, if these angels came down to people, they would look like God. So
Mhm.
maybe that's where Greek mythology got it from. They're thinking that God's are really angels. So then you're combining the two beliefs then. So then they're making children. In Christianity, we call them Nephilim. In Greek philosophy, they call them demigods, their offspring of creation. So I almost wonder if the root cause of their beliefs is really God's fallen angels that caused the sin. Maybe that's why he took them away, because no one should be worshipped like that. It
Right.
would be a huge sin that they put themselves above, not only creating offspring for humans, but they also made themselves God. So I just, there might
Which-
be a reasoning. A lot of people believed in that
Yeah.
Greek mythology. So
Oh, yeah.
there must have been evidence. So this could have been their evidence, but their evidence didn't have the real cause, so it might
No.
all be connected.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That's where my school brain is going. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
That's-
You're good.
that's
That's
a
a
good
that's a very
That's a good
good point. So, and what was the original reason that war broke out in heaven? Whether they ate from the tree or not, which we'll get back to. But what was the original reason that war broke out in heaven? What were they trying to do? What was Satan trying to do? What was Lucifer trying to do? Huh?
Overthrowing God.
Overthrow God. He wanted to be God. He felt that he could be God.
Yeah.
And wanted to be worshipped. So now they come to earth and they create, like Kylie just said, they create these Nephilim, these demigods, the others, like you said, the other mythologies call them. So aren't they just still trying to be God? It's still the same sin that they got cast down for. They're trying to be God again. And they're trying it this way. They can't be God in heaven, and they'll be God down here on this earth. And maybe if they create enough, maybe they thought if they created enough gods down here, that they could go to heaven and overthrow God again. I don't know why. However many overthrew the first time, and we definitely don't know the number of angels. I think some people have talked about it and tried to say it, but I have never found it in the Bible where there's a number of the angels. Now, I don't know if it's in some of maybe the Jewish, Hebrew Bibles or something, but I don't think it is. I don't know that there's a number to the amount of angels. All we have is, and I'm inclined to really believe that, because if there was, say there's 10 million angels that God had made serving in heaven. And we know there's a lot, because the angels go all over the earth. And they, like the fallen angels, they can't be everywhere at once. They're not omnipresent. They can't be everywhere at once. Okay? But they are here and they help us, and they serve God by helping us here on the earth. Now, whether you want to call it a guardian angel or not, I don't think we all have our own guardian angel. We got the Holy Spirit inside of us. That's the guardian angel we got. So call it, Jiminy Cricket if you want, but, some people call it Jiminy Cricket. But if you look back through the literature of time, you see that, okay, God says we're indwelt with the Holy Spirit that leads and guides us to do right instead of wrong, to master the temptations that we have coming towards us, at us. Okay. In that story, in the Pinocchio story, you got Jiminy Cricket, his conscience. Okay, it was a little cricket because he was a wooden boy. He couldn't think for himself or whatever, so that was his thing to guide. So they always try to put some sort of spin on, and now we get evolution. God didn't make the earth. It was a big bang. Yeah, it was a big bang. God said this is going to happen, and bang, it happened. You know, that was the bang. But, you know, everybody says, you know, this, we got this going on. We got, you know, and they try to, just like in the end days. In the end days, when the signs are coming, and when if you read Revelation for in a more of a literal sense, and see the judgments that come down on the earth and whatever, when the judgments come down, they will have scientific explanations for why it happened.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. They will come up with a scientific explanation because they can't accept that it is God. And so, like you said, the Greek and the Roman mythologies and all the other ones or whatever, they were coming up with a reason as to why these huge superhuman people were on the earth at this point. And we're not, the Bible's not the only place where it talks about a global flood. There's other literature where it talks about the global flood. And so that causes some people to doubt the Bible because, oh, well, you're just copying this one, or you're just copying that one. And no, they're copying. As we see, Satan copies all of the stuff that God does. Okay? As we discussed with, if the sin was in the garden, when we talked about the sin in the garden, it was, did Satan have relations with Eve and created Cain? That's a belief I had never heard of until it was brought up and I started researching, you know, it was mentioned. But yeah, that is a belief that's out there, that the original sin was not just the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, but it was a sexual relation between Eve and the serpent, and that Cain was produced from that. My Bible says that Cain and Abel came from Adam and Eve. Now, doesn't give a timeline in between them. Some people think that they were twins, they came at the same time, but I don't know. So it might be, I think they were close in age because they were both, we see them as grown adults. And so we you know, but yeah, but in any case, God decides whatever the cause of it was that was going on. And I really, truly, I lean more towards that the fallen angels were involved in some way, shape, or form. That they either took the form of humans that looked just incredibly beautiful, as we see the angels that came to Sodom and Gomorrah to get Lot and his family out. Or Sodom, I guess. He was in Sodom. But that they were so beautiful that the people wanted to be with them. These angels might have been so beautiful that the women were willing to be with them, and that they created these superhuman beings because they had immortal powers. And God says, I'm not going to contend with these people for a lifetime. That's the reason we were cast out of the garden, because God did not want, once we had fallen, we were cast out of the garden because he did not want us to live forever in our sin. And so he didn't want us eating from the tree of life all the time and being able to just stay committing all these sins and everything. So our lives are shortened, and now they've been shortened even more down to 120 years. If we make it that long, you know, that's the maximum. So we see, and so God decides that he needs to bring a flood on the earth. He tells Noah to do it. We know the story. He tells Noah to do it, and he goes and covers. But I honestly think, the more I've kind of looked into this over the last several weeks, I honestly believe that one way or the other, the angels, either they took possession of the men of the earth and procreated with the women, or they impersonated men in appearance and procreated with the women. But in any case, there was a procreation with the women of the earth. The daughters of men is how it's called. And so, okay. And yes, Jody pointed out that there's another reference to sons of God, by Paul in Romans, and we'll talk about that when I get here, when we address that a little more. But I honestly think that could be why the possession of the men is a better plausible solution for this. So, but in any case, and like I said, and it's always struck me as in Jude, so why are some of the angels bound and not all of them? Well, because some of them went way too far. So is this what they went way too far with? Seems like it could be. If God's willing to destroy the earth or flood the earth and destroy all human life except for 6 people, start over, then I'm thinking that the rest, that in Jude, where it reads that about that there are some bound, that's what that's about. So, comments, questions? Have I confused you all real good?
Very interesting.
What'd you think, Horace, for your first time here? Wasn't what you were expecting, was it? So,
I'm fine with it.
okay,
It's
all right.
all right here.
That's right, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand, and that's